Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something uh, really fundamental to marketing, buying dynamics.
hmm
Think about it. What makes someone actually choose one thing over another? Whether it's, a pack of gum or $1 million enterprise software system.
Right.
That's what we're digging into today.
Yeah.
Our mission really is to extract the core insights into how these purchasing decisions actually happen for both the everyday stuff and the monumental business decisions.
Exactly.
We'll be exploring the key forces that sway those decisions and the processes involved.
And it's important because, well, we all buy things, right? So it might seem straightforward on the surface.
Yeah, common sense maybe?
But when you really look at the research, it's actually fascinating how many layers there are to why we choose what we do. Understanding these underlying dynamics is just crucial. It's the very foundation, really, on which effective marketing is built.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So let's maybe start with how individual consumers make choices,
Mm.
because that's something, we can all relate to directly. It's not just about seeing something shiny and grabbing it, is it?
Yeah.
There's a whole kind of hidden landscape influencing us.
Absolutely not. I mean, while we like to think we're entirely rational decision makers,
We try.
we try, yeah. But there are these powerful cultural currents constantly shaping our desires. Think about it. What's considered, say, a desirable car in one culture may be focused on practicality. Fuel efficiency might be totally different somewhere else, where status and luxury are paramount.
Makes sense.
Then you drill down into subcultures, maybe a group really into sustainable living. Their purchasing is driven by very specific values, right?
Uh-huh.
And even social class can subtly dictate preferences, from the brands we even consider to where we feel comfortable shopping.
That's a great point. It's almost like there are these invisible rules we're all kind of playing by.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we zoom in a bit, it's our more immediate surroundings, our social circles, family.
Right. Our reference groups, the people we look to for cues on what's acceptable or, desirable, they have a surprising amount of sway.
Like friends influencing taste in music, or maybe colleagues influencing work clothes.
Exactly that. Or a professional network shaping your choice of, say, business software. Family traditions also play a huge role, often without us even realizing it.
Mm.
And then think about the different roles we play. Parent, manager, student. Each one comes with certain expectations about what we should own or use.
And this is where we often hear about opinion leaders, right? Those people whose recommendations really seem to stick.
Precisely. Opinion leaders offer that informal, kind of trusted advice. It's not like a paid endorsement. It's someone who's genuinely knowledgeable or respected in a certain area, and their opinion just carries significant weight.
Like maybe a tech reviewer on YouTube.
Perfect example. Think of a gamer you follow online whose review of a new console can literally make or break its launch for their followers. That word of mouth influence is just incredibly powerful.
Right, okay. Now let's get down to the really personal stuff. Our age, our job, even our personality quirks. These feel like they'd be the most direct influences on what we buy.
Oh, they are deeply ingrained. Your stage in life, for instance, being a student just starting out versus, say, a seasoned professional nearing retirement, very different needs, different priorities.
Totally.
Your occupation influences not only your income, but also your actual needs, right? A construction worker needs different gear than an office manager.
Sure.
And lifestyle, your hobbies, your values, even your underlying personality and how you see yourself, your self-concept, it all steers your choices. Someone who sees themselves as uh, eco-conscious will likely make very different purchasing decisions than someone primarily driven by, say, price or convenience.
So it's this fascinating interplay of what's around us and what's, within us.
Yeah.
But what actually happens in our minds when we go to buy something? It can't just be a list of factors ticking boxes, can it?
You're right. It's much more dynamic. There are crucial psychological processes at play. It often starts with motivation, what truly compels us to seek a solution to a need or a want. Exactly, the trigger. Then there's perception, how we actually interpret the marketing messages and all the information we encounter about different products. Learning is key too. Our past experiences, good or bad, heavily influence our future choices.
Uh-huh.
Emotions can be really powerful drivers. Think about the excitement of buying something new or maybe the reassurance of a familiar, trusted brand.
Yeah, that comfort factor.
And finally, memory, how we store and retrieve information about products and brands that shapes our consideration set, the options we actually think about.
You mentioned a fascinating quirk of memory earlier, something called the availability heuristic. Can you dive a bit deeper into that one?
Absolutely. The availability heuristic is basically this mental shortcut our brains use.
What do you mean?
Judge the likelihood of something happening based on how easily examples come to mind.
Right.
So imagine you hear about one instance, just one, of a particular airline losing luggage, even if statistically that airline has a great track record.
Right.
That recent, maybe vivid story might jump to mind more easily when you're booking a flight. It makes you overestimate the risk, potentially leading you to choose a different airline altogether.
Wow. So one memorable negative thing can outweigh loads of positive data just because it's easy to recall.
Exactly. It's a prime example of how our brains can be influenced by information that's easily accessible, even if it's not the most statistically relevant. It shows the power of anecdotes,
Yeah,
really.
that's really eye-opening.
Yeah.
Okay, so with all these forces pulling us in different directions, cultural, social, personal, psychological, how do we actually go from needing something to, handing over our money? Is there a typical decision path?
Well, there's a general framework people talk about, though. Real life isn't always a neat, straight line.
Well,
It usually kicks off with problem recognition. That moment you realize, hey, I need a new coffee maker, or my phone is getting really old.
the trigger again.
Right. This triggers an information search. You start looking at options, maybe browsing online reviews, asking friends, checking social media.
Right.
This search usually narrows things down to what's called a consideration set, just a handful of brands or models you're seriously thinking about.
Right, that mental short list of possibilities.
Right.
What happens once we have that?
Then comes the evaluation of alternatives. Here, you're weighing the pros and cons of each option based on the information you've gathered and, crucially, what's important to you.
Okay.
There's a concept called the expectancy value model, which, in simple terms, suggests we evaluate products based on what we believe they can do for us, their attributes, and how much we value those particular benefits.
So for that coffee maker, I might really value brewing speed and maybe how easy it is to clean.
Precisely. And you'll assess each model in your consideration set based on those specific factors, maybe others too, like price or brand reputation.
So it's not just about the raw specs on the box,
Mhm.
but how well those specs align with what I personally care about.
Exactly right. Ultimately, this whole process leads to the purchase decision itself. But even then, things can change at the last minute.
Like what?
Well, maybe a sudden unexpected cost pops up, like realizing shipping is way more than you thought, or a friend gives you a last-minute negative review. These situational factors can still derail the purchase right at the end,
Okay, so it's not over till it's over.
pretty much. And the story doesn't even end when you buy the product. What happens after matters hugely. Post-purchase behavior, are you satisfied? Do you become a repeat customer? Do you tell your friends about it? That's incredibly important for marketers to understand.
Absolutely, because a happy customer becomes like a walking, talking advertisement, feeding right back into those social influences we discussed earlier.
Exactly. It's a cycle.
Okay, so that's the world of individual buying. Fascinating stuff. But what happens when businesses are the ones making the purchases? That feels like a completely different landscape.
Oh, it is. It's a fundamentally different market in many ways.
How so?
Well, for starters, you're dealing with far fewer buyers typically, but each individual purchase is usually much, much larger in volume and value.
Right, fewer customers, bigger tickets.
Exactly. And the relationships between businesses and their suppliers tend to be much closer, often built on long-term contracts and mutual dependency.
More collaborative, maybe.
Often, yes. Also, business buyers are frequently concentrated geographically. Think about, Silicon Valley for tech companies or Detroit for automotive.
That makes sense. Instead of millions of individual consumers scattered everywhere, you might have a few key purchasing managers in a specific industry hub.
What about the demand for goods? Is that different too?
Yes, significantly. Business demand is often what we call derived demand.
Derived demand.
Yeah, it's not typically driven by direct consumer desire for that specific component, but rather by the demand for the end products those businesses create. So if consumer demand for smartphones shoots up,
Then the demand for the specialized glass and the screens also rises.
precisely. Business demand can also be more volatile, fluctuating more sharply with the ups and downs of the overall economy, the business cycle. So if there's an economic downturn, businesses might slam the brakes on buying large equipment much faster than an individual might delay buying, say, a new pair of shoes.
That's a very common pattern, yes. And the entire buying process in a business context is usually much more formal and structured.
How formal.
Well, it often involves teams of professional buyers interacting with professional sellers. Negotiation on price, terms, service agreements, that's a much more standard part of the process in B2B transactions compared to most consumer purchases.
Okay, so fewer buyers, bigger stakes, closer relationships, drive demand, more formality, professional players.
Got it. What are the key ideas we need to grasp about how businesses actually make these buying decisions?
Well, one crucial concept is understanding the different buying situations. Businesses don't treat every single purchase the same way.
Okay.
There's what's called the straight rebuy. This is pretty routine, like a repeat purchase of something they buy regularly, maybe office supplies or standard raw materials.
Low involvement, usually.
Simple enough.
Then there's the modified rebuy. This is where the business wants to make some changes, maybe to the product specifications, the price, the delivery terms, or perhaps even consider a different supplier for something they've bought before.
So a bit more effort involved there.
Definitely. And finally, there's the new task purchase. This is when the business is buying a product or service for the very first time. Think like installing a major new enterprise-level software system or building a new factory.
Right. That sounds like the most complex one by far. Lots of research, lots of people involved, I'd imagine.
Absolutely. Which leads us nicely to the next key concept, the buying center.
The buying center. Is that like a department?
Not necessarily a formal department and definitely not a physical place. It's more of a concept representing all the individuals within the organization who play some role in the purchasing decision process.
Okay, so who might be in this center?
It can vary a lot, but you often find roles like initiators, who first identify the need or problem. Users, people who will actually use the product or service. Influencers, who might provide technical expertise or help define specifications. Think engineers or IT specialists. Then you have deciders, who have the formal authority to actually choose the supplier for the final product. Approvers, who authorize the proposed action instead of suppliers. Themselves, who have the authority to select the supplier and choose the purchase terms. And finally, gatekeepers. Yeah, people who control the flow of try to identify the most appropriate vendors. Next up is proposal solicitation, where they invite qualified suppliers to submit detailed proposals.
Okay, getting competitive now.
Right. Then comes the crucial supplier studies. Here, clients choose your marketing efforts are essentially just shots in the dark.
Right.
It informs pretty much every strategic and tactical decision you make in marketing.
So how does this understanding influence who we even try to reach with our marketing in the first place?
Segmentation and targeting, right?
Exactly. That's where the power of segmentation and targeting really comes into play. By analyzing all those factors, we discuss demographic, psychographic, like lifestyle, values, personality, and behavioral factors like purchase history, usage rate. Marketers can group potential customers with similar needs and buying patterns into distinct segments.
Grouping like-minded buyers together.
Right. And this allows for much more precise targeting of marketing resources. You can focus your efforts, your budget, your messaging towards those segments that offer the greatest potential, whether that's growth, profitability, or maybe strategic importance. It's about focusing your efforts where they'll likely have the most impact. Okay, so it's about finding the right message for the right people. What about how we actually get our products or services to those customers? The channels.
Understanding how your target buyers, whether they're consumers or businesses, prefer to access information, evaluate options, and ultimately make purchases is absolutely fundamental to designing effective marketing channels or distribution.
Where do they like to shop or interact?
Exactly. Do consumers primarily shop online? Do they prefer physical stores? Do they use a mix of both? How do businesses prefer to interact with potential suppliers through sales reps, online portals, trade shows? Knowing this dictates your distribution strategy. The right channels are crucial for converting potential interest into actual sales.
And that's constantly changing, isn't it, with e-commerce, mobile?
Absolutely. The rise of e-commerce, m-commerce, mobile, and these omni-channel strategies where customers have a seamless experience across online and offline channels just reflects the evolving ways people want to research and buy. You have to meet them where they are.
Makes sense. And what about the messages we craft our actual marketing communications? How does understanding buying dynamics shape what we say and how we say it?
Well, knowing where your potential customers are in their buying journey, are they just becoming aware of a need? Are they actively comparing options? Are they ready to make a purchase?
Right. The stage matters.
Hugely. And understanding the key factors that influence them at each stage allows you to develop a communication mix, advertising, PR, social media, direct marketing, sales promotions that truly resonates. Your marketing communications are essentially your company's voice.
Used to inform, persuade.
Persuade, remind, and build relationships. Understanding the power of, say, word of mouth or those opinion leaders we talked about can guide your social media and influencer marketing strategies. Tailoring your message to address the specific needs, concerns, motivations, and influences of your target audience is absolutely essential for making an impact.
That makes perfect sense. You wouldn't use the same aggressive sales pitch for someone who's just vaguely heard about your products versus someone who's actively comparing different options on your website.
Exactly. You need to match the message to the mindset and the stage of the buyer.
Okay. What about something as fundamental as pricing? How does understanding buying behavior play a role there?
Pricing decisions are heavily dependent on understanding how both consumers and businesses perceive value and react to different price points.
It's not just cost plus.
Definitely not, or at least it shouldn't be purely cost plus. For consumers, it involves understanding their price sensitivity, the role of reference prices, how they perceive quality based on price, and all those psychological factors. In business-to-business markets, where negotiation is often a big part of it, understanding the buyer's total cost structure, the perceived value of your complete offering, including service, support, reliability, is crucial for developing effective pricing strategies and justifying your price during negotiations.
So understanding what they value beyond just the sticker price.
Precisely. Total value proposition.
And finally, how do we even measure if all this marketing effort is actually paying off? How does understanding buying dynamics tie into performance measurement?
Well, many key marketing performance indicators, or KPIs, are direct results of understanding and effectively influencing buying dynamics.
Like what kind of metrics?
Things like how aware or ready your target audience is to buy, your customer acquisition cost, how much it costs to get a new customer, how well you retain existing customers, your retention rate, and maybe the ultimate metric, the overall customer lifetime value, or CLV.
How much a customer is worth over their entire relationship with you.
Exactly. By tracking these kinds of metrics, you can gauge the real success of your marketing strategies that are built on understanding buyer behavior. Ultimately, the goal of building strong customer relationships informed by buying dynamics is to be able to estimate that long-term value each customer brings and design offerings and experiences that foster profitable, enduring connections.
So to really boil it down then, it sounds like grasping the intricacies of how people and organizations decide what to buy isn't just some abstract academic exercise.
Not at all.
It's really the bedrock, the foundation upon which all successful marketing strategies have to be built.
Precisely. It's about genuinely getting into the minds of your buyers, understanding their motivations, their influences, their decision-making processes, their context. That knowledge is the absolute key to making informed and effective marketing choices across the board, from strategy right down to tactics.
This has been incredibly illuminating, really breaking down something we all experience but maybe don't always analyze. So considering all these diverse factors and the often complex processes involved in both consumer and business purchasing, here's a final thought for you, our listener. What is one assumption you might have previously held about why you personally, or perhaps an organization you know well, makes purchases? And how might this deep dive challenge that assumption? Take a moment, maybe later today, to really think about the hidden forces, cultural, social, personal, psychological, procedural, that might be driving those decisions you see every day.
That's a great reflective question.
Thanks for exploring the deep end of buying dynamics with us.